Grothman for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to address one of the very important Supreme Court decisions which came down in the last couple weeks, and some of the comments that have been made critical of that decision. I'm talking about the one that dealt with a policy now known in the United States as affirmative action. And what that policy does is it gives, as a practical matter, preferences both on the basis of race and gender in university admissions. Actually, the public debate should go beyond that, because in this country, not only do we have a policy in which we try to have certain groups jump ahead of other people based on test scores or grade point average, but we also have preferences, or encourage as a practical matter, preferences in hiring for government jobs, as well as hiring in jobs working for a private organization if that private organization has at least 50 employees and does business with the federal government, and also preferences with regard to government contracting. As a practical matter, we've had these preferences since 1965, so we're talking about things that are 67 years old. I will point out that sometimes, with regard to government contracting, it encourages lying. I've talked to people in my district who talk about their colleagues putting businesses in the name of their wives so they can get the preference for a woman-owned business, even though the guy continues to run the business. My friend doesn't like it because he's an honest person. He refuses to lie, and he doesn't like the fact that people who are lying move ahead of him. He's in the construction field. There are two ideas put forth as to why we need these preferences. One is to undo past injustices from years ago, going all the way back to slavery in the 1860s. And secondly, the idea that somehow we should ask businesses or the government to have a more diverse task force. I'm going to deal with each one of these separately. First of all, with regard to past injustices, the benefits in universities and the benefit in government affirmative action goes to people who were never even in this country. We have to ask ourselves why, if my ancestors came here from, let's say, Peru in the 1990s, why, and never experienced a period in this country, assuming there was such a period, in which there's a lot of prejudice, why would we be giving preferences to people who moved here in the 1990s? Or black people who moved here from Jamaica or from the Bahamas in the 1990s, well past the era of Jim Crow, much less well past slavery times. Why would we be giving them preferences? The Biden administration most recently is trying to add another group to get preferences, people from the Middle East or Northern Africa. Why, if someone moves here from Algeria or Syria today, may not even be citizens, why would they be given preferences? What's the underlying rationale? The other thing to point out here is we are giving preferences, or hypothetically preferences, to people who are doing better than the native-born population. And this is something people should remember before they advocate for this, or if they have children or grandchildren making the pitch for this. Right now, the ethnic group in America that is doing the best financially, and money's not the most important thing in life, but nevertheless, that's frequently what we look to when we determine these programs. Indian Americans are the most successful group in America today. Behind that, we have people from China. I think the number 2 group right now is from the Philippines. People from Cuba are doing better than the native-born. According to Thomas Sowell, and this is a book that's somewhat dated, but according to Thomas Sowell, the second generation after people move here from the West Indies, Jamaica, Bahamas, do better than the average American. Given that, like I said, we're dealing with people who came here well past the time of prejudice, and why in the world would we be giving preferences to these people? The next thing I'll point out is some people fall back on the idea of we need a diverse group of students or a diverse workforce. This is kind of a bizarre argument, and it's something people should have to defend. why, if let's say I'm 1/4 Peruvian, I'm not, but let's say for the sake of argument I'm 1/4 Peruvian, but I've never been to Peru, I don't know a word of Spanish, I've never been to a Spanish-speaking country, why in the world would we be giving me preferences to bring the Peruvian viewpoint to an engineering firm, say? Makes no sense at all. I have no connection other than DNA with people who are Peruvian. So these are some of the ideas that I think people should have to respond to before they're critical of that decision or people who want this sort of policy to continue. Thank you very much.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman.